Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today we're once again discussing data, digital tools, and the use of artificial intelligence, and particularly the way that it's set to transform infrastructure performance. My guest today is Nathan Marsh, Senior Vice President for Europe, Middle East and Africa at software giant Bentley Systems, someone who has, well, to be honest, been immersed in tech challenges in one shape or another for his entire career in infrastructure. So, Nathan, I hope, be well placed to shed light on the way and the pace technology is shaping the sector. We're chatting today at Bentley Systems Year in Infrastructure 2025 conference in Amsterdam, where Nathan has been discussing, amongst other things, the transformative role that technology is having in shaping the future of national infrastructure. There's no question that over the last 2 decades, the use and the power of digital systems has evolved from basic 2D drawing tools through the evolution of building information modeling to give us the kind of software tools that are at last truly changing the way that engineers approach the design, construction and management of infrastructure assets. The use of technology certainly is going to provide better tools, smarter workflows and more connected data as a key to changing and improving the outcomes generated in return for the vast investment plan for infrastructure. But the question is how? So let's get a bit more practical insight into what this technology might hold for infrastructure design, construction and management. Nathan, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Anthony, thanks very much. Good to see you again. And you've described there, I think, the story of my career and my life at the moment, which is fantastic.
Let's get a bit more into that. Before we explore that, though, and explore the role of digitization and artificial intelligence in accelerating transformation across the infrastructure, you have talked in the past about the need for the sector to rapidly embrace a digital-first approach. So what is that? What do you mean by a digital-first approach, and why is it so important?
Anthony, I think it's important because it means starting early and thinking big. So starting early, when we're looking at the outline business case for an infrastructure scheme, we're thinking about planning, DCOs, potential site locations, site surveys. We've already started to incur in our heads at least and in the scheme how we're going to use technology. We might not have realised that. So let's get really specific and clear that digital first should come as part of the business case. The technology required to design and deliver and operate the scheme needs to start early. So think like a technologist and think at the earliest point.
Well, I also read a while back something in which you described getting value from data as one of the greatest emerging trends in the sector, adding, I think you said, there's no shortage of data and information, but organising, presenting it and using it well is now the grand digital challenge of our decade. Fine words, but, it's interesting, because it's true today. I would say, clearly artificial intelligence is key to tackling this organisational challenge, but it's also a huge risk from that very poor quality data. So how can Bentley help create, I think the phrase you're using is trustworthy data?
That's a really great question. And I think as well as starting early, so thinking like a technologist early, building technology and data strategy into the business case, you already then start to think about data as an intangible asset. It's got value. Mm-hmm. Holding it on the balance sheet early on as an intangible asset. And you start to build the value in data. Now, if you think of a digital twin that is important for design, engineering, construction, and of course, running the asset, how much is that going to be worth? Well, it isn't going to be zero, but it's going to be multiples of the amount of value that it has been in the past. So this data holds value, and I think we can unlock the value if it's well organised, secure, and trustworthy. Yeah.
And trustworthy, how would you describe trustworthy then?
Understanding its provenance, whether it's raw data from an asset, so who supplied it, how secure is it? How structured is it? Is it shareable? Is it adding value, or is it just quite latent? If it's AI, for example, what's the provenance of the source code? Who developed it? Yeah. Are we certain we know what this tool can do? So the more that we can be trusting of our data, the greater value it has to us.
Quite a lot of challenges in there for the industry, and we're going to delve a bit more into your career in a moment as you been through the whole industry, but having swapped your previous operational roles in contracting and consulting to lead the EMEA region for Bentley Systems, one of the sector's biggest and most successful software providers, how does this shift, your practical knowledge, I suppose, going back to this trustworthiness, your practical appreciation of trustworthiness, how does it help you to help the sector to navigate this journey?
Well, I think I've spent more time outside my current chair than in it. So rather than in the past, asking for data to be trustworthy, for organizations, particularly technology companies and software companies, to think about the value of data, I'm now in a position where we can build right from the outset integrity and trust and trustworthiness into our code, into our solutions, into our propositions, and with partners, build them in early. So help our design engineers and even our investors get in early in the infrastructure lifecycle. Yeah. So I finally got to a point in my career, I think, where I can answer the questions I've been asking for many years.
Well, it's interesting because certainly there's a lot of talk at this conference about the need to engage with the industry to find out, you're the software developers, but the users are actually the ones who are understanding what they want it for.
Absolutely. And I think myself and others like me who've crossed that Rubicon can help both ask and answer the right question, and also help the wider sector understand why it's important to retain a focus on technology right from the get-go.
Interesting, though, because we do hear also about how far behind the tech curve infrastructure still is. I mean, bear in mind, and notwithstanding the fantastic stories and case studies we're seeing at this exhibition and event this week at the Year in Infrastructure. I mean, from your perspective, is it still true? Are we still, as an industry, a long way behind perhaps other sectors, manufacturing, aerospace, etc.?
I think it rather depends. If I think back 10 years in my career, I'd say we were. The gap was definitely there. But we are literally surrounded by projects at this event that are AI by default, that are using really powerful, capable automation, that are using advanced modeling, clash detection. This is stuff we were talking about 10 years ago, trialing 5 years ago, and we're surrounded by projects that have used it, delivered value, and got it right.
But they're the pinnacle.
Are
they the pinnacle, or are they kind of the norm now?
I think they're the tip and probably half the spear of the arrow, half the shaft of the arrow. So we're getting there. No one's going to pretend that we are working in advanced manufacturing, financial services, etc. That said, as a software company, we are representing the pull forward, and I think it's important that we can bring the majority of the sector with us.
Yeah. I suppose the point that you have made and that a lot of people here are making is that we have to, as an industry, embrace this. You spoke today about the way technology will support the next chapter of development of human history. No pressure there, Nathan. But to ensure the next generation, you said, no, not only survives, but thrives. It's a topic that you've been championing for some time. And the question, I suppose, is how? And I remember you speaking at a conference a couple of years ago. You set out a number of key principles critical to ensuring the use of digital systems is rolled out effectively. Yeah. Well, the first of those principles was readiness. And this week you highlighted the urgent need for the sector to get ready for the future of infrastructure. So is infrastructure in better shape now to embrace this opportunity?
Yes, I think it is. The skills gap is closing. There is still a skills shortage for engineers, but of course those engineers now need to be AI native and happy with no, low or complex or pro code. What I'm really excited about is I think back 5 to 6 years ago where we were looking at elegant and sophisticated macros in Excel. Then 3 or 4 years ago we're looking at advanced automation, and now we're looking at AI pulled projects. So we are making tangible steps forward. As you say, we need to make sure that change and that evolution permeates the full sector.
Because you were also then talking about managing risk and opportunity. And again, risk, particularly around the management of data and the use of AI and the generation of trust in solutions. It's been the hot topic of discussion here, certainly over the last day at the conference. So what do you mean and practically mean about the managing technology risk and opportunity? And how does the sector have to change to meet that challenge?
I thought for many years, infrastructure, particularly construction, is largely a risk management business. Right. We're looking at site safety, we're looking at human risk, we're looking at capital risk in terms of budget, time risk in terms of schedule. It's a big, complex and interdependent exercise in risk management. Getting ready for that and looking at the trustworthiness of the data means our skills and our capabilities need to be ready for this most digital decade yet. I mentioned that earlier, but also that we have integrity and surety in the solutions that we use and the data that we use. And we're getting better at interrogating that data and learning to trust it, because we're going to make decisions based on it. Yeah. And when you're dealing with critical national infrastructure, you've got to get it right.
Yeah. Which brings me to the final thing you talked about, is the need for business and economic value creation. And there's no question that businesses, they need to demonstrate returns from all this investment, because you've got some fantastic whizzy stuff out there. Every time you turn up to a conference, there's some new products, and that's only right that you're a software company developing new things. But I suppose Are those returns possible on the vast sums that are being invested in technology? Companies nowadays, they're under huge financial pressures. Are they able to make that financial commitment to get those returns?
You don't have to be an investor to think like an investor. And I think if we can look early on at grassroots of efficiencies through things like brilliant basics in terms of automation in a PMO, looking at risk modeling, predictive risk modeling, we can start to see that the important cycle of volume activity in a construction project starts to get automated.
Yeah.
That frees up capacity. When you start to look at risk, you can bring more accurate risk modeling in, so it starts to de-risk the program. That makes it safer. So hold on, you're faster and you're safer. Now, this is value you can redeploy elsewhere in the project bank account or redeploy it back to the enterprise.
Yeah. But of course, embracing change is notoriously difficult for the infrastructure sector. It's very traditional. It's got low barriers to entry. The margins, they're not high enough to really allow investment in innovation. So how can perhaps AI help that?
I think AI has literally the power, the processing power, the computational power to support us move the industry forward by demonstrating what it can do in terms of pace, accuracy, certainty, de-risking that I mentioned a moment ago. We also need advocates. So we need project advocates, as in projects that we can showcase and use those as our billboards, but also senior leadership and a next generation of engineers, contractors and asset owners that are AI native. So there's a few instruments there that need to be playing at the same time to start to change the tone and popularity and allure of our wonderful sector.
Yeah. Well, Nicholas Cummins, Chief Executive of Bentley, he spoke today about engineering capacity as being the greatest challenge facing infrastructure. You mentioned it earlier, this challenge around skills, which kind of ain't going away anytime soon. It's clearly highlighted the role of technology as being a solution to that. And as I mentioned earlier in the intro, providing better tools, smarter workflows and more connected data that can boost productivity and outcomes. In short, is that how you see the solution?
Yes. If you look at OpenSite Plus that was showcased today, we're seeing a master plan at a very high level of quality produced in a much shorter period of time. So, dear engineer and designer, what do you want to do with that extra time? And how are you going to create a value exchange with the customer for that? You could redeploy that time elsewhere in your team. You could get your team members to do more work. We've created capacity in the business, and that means value. So that's what AI-enabled software products can do in 2025 for our clients.
Yeah, so that is freeing up talent to do more creative activities.
Potentially, yes, potentially. Or to do more activity of the same.
Right.
And then as our software gets more capable and as the commercial appetite and commercial agreements between these two parties evolve, where else do we want to go? We're slightly, pardon the pun, building this road as we're going down it.
Yeah.
What an exciting and privileged place to be.
Yeah, but and I get that, and I imagine you're also looking at coming up with the opportunity to come up with different solutions, coming up with different answers to perhaps the same or even different questions.
We are. And also, when you think about the focus on essentially we are de-risking and risk managing the most complex feats of engineering and construction, the greater level of certainty, a greater level of control, a greater level of overall control regime that we can bring to a really complex and risky and in some cases dangerous environment, that's worthy. That's a worthy challenge on its own. If we create value off the back of that, even better.
Yeah. I know that you get that, Nathan, and I think I get that. But what could challenge our industry's adoption of advanced technology like yours? Is it fear? Is it cost? Is it culture? Is it skills? Is it opportunity? Is it incentive? What is the big blocker?
Oh, it's all of the above. There's also a prevailing belief, I think, around construction that, does it have the allure of other sectors? It's incredibly alluring. I think we need to get better at broadcasting that and demonstrating that, not just telling, but showing, letting the projects speak for themselves. Yeah. And literally in some cases, given the voice applications we have in terms of using your voice to get the AI module on in our software and using your voice to control the AI delivering or engineering design, literally letting that speak for itself. That is powerful.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we're also letting you speak about it, Nathan, because let's talk a bit about you. You joined Bentley Systems at the start of 2024, having spent 3 years with a leading program management consultant as chief technology officer. You held similar roles at various tier one contractors, a global engineering design consultancy, and a digital leader before that. Why the change from doing, and he's got quotation marks in the air here, doing to actually being a software developer?
Well, I've certainly taken the scenic route, and it's been an incredibly enjoyable route. I think only now, when you stand to look at it in the rearview mirror, does it start to make sense. Starting off as after I left the military, with a passion for infrastructure, particularly around post-conflict regeneration, looking at time with a big insurer, so risk managing the most complex assets in the world. Then going into corporate finance and consultancy. Then, of course, as you say, contracting, engineering, and then program management. The cherry on top, of course, is the software element. And I think, in a way, now I'm doing it, because not only are we helping our brilliant clients deliver these amazing projects, but we're at that tip of that arrow, the vanguard of what comes next. So everything you're talking about, we and a precious few others are trying to ask and answer those questions.
Well, you mentioned your career in the military. You served in the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards for all over the world for the first 7 years of your career. How does that military career set you up for a career in business and infrastructure?
I think it gives one perspective. It teaches one the virtue of patience, teaches one how to win, how to lose, how to be gracious in both contexts, teaches you to have an incredible sense of humour, which I think is vital in all industries, and it gives you an amazing sense of camaraderie. It also teaches you about yourself and about other people, the effect they have on you and you have on them. So all in all, that was a good life package for me, and I use elements of it knowingly and unknowingly every day.
It sounds like you miss it desperately.
It had its time.
Well, more interestingly, you also played rugby professionally, first with Birmingham Moseley Rugby Club and then at London Welsh Rugby Football Club, until you retired in 1997, never to pick up a ball again. Wow. Anyway, do you miss that? Do you miss that? The cut and thrust of the rugby pitch?
I do. I had a phenomenal time. I was an absolute, and still am, passionate about rugby, a rugby player, and of course supporter more recently. Retirement wasn't my decision. I was injured, and as I was stretching it off, I thought, time's up. But no, I absolutely loved it. And it defined me again in terms of being on a team, captaining a team, winning at great heights, losing at great lows, and again, having some fun in the process.
Right. I mean, professional rugby is all about the team. Well, I suppose at the moment it's all about disputes over which league you're playing in, isn't it? But anyway, it's all about the team, about managing pain as well, I suppose. What can infrastructure learn about that?
Well, being a Welsh rugby fan, I probably don't want to talk much about rugby anymore. But you're right.
Well, that's about managing pain. Yeah.
Managing a balanced portfolio of rough with the smooth, and any major construction or design engineering construction and asset operation program has its ups and downs. So there are elements of that you can take from sporting, life, military, and other worthy career aspects into managing people, because with all this amazing software in the world, and someone else mentioned today, the human element is now, and I think will always remain, the luxury element. And that's something I really like. It's the most important part of the cycle, most important element of the process. We've heard that humans could be the bookends. We start it and we finish it in terms of decision making. I really like that. So the fact that humans are very much in the loop, at the center of the loop, the luxury element and the bookends, that sounds to me like technology knows its place.
Right. So it sounds like in the rugby, you've got the starters, you've got the finishers, and you've got the AI mob in the middle.
In the middle, doing the heavy lifting.
Exactly. Yeah. There must be some negative things about having a career in the military and in sport that kind of because sport, it's about winning, it's about being the best. Whereas the working life infrastructure isn't. Don't we talk about collaborative teamwork all the time?
On every major project I've worked on, there's been individual goals and shared goals and collective goals. I think playing in sport, yes, of course, it's about winning, but sometimes the journey is the destination. So you learn a lot about yourself through losses and in a different way through wins as well. And that's an important human trait, which isn't universal, but I think can be applied in business more so than ever.
We're back to Welsh rugby again, aren't we?
Yeah, so So I think the importance of taking a balanced view for our sector, and knowing that these projects, by their very nature, are complex, long-term, but you're also dealing with and constructing and delivering, and in some cases operating, the crown jewels of a nation, the fabric, the foundation layer of critical national infrastructure. Once that's in place, everything else gets built. So I think we have a duty and a responsibility to take the rough with the smooth, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Of course, you don't brave rugby anymore, but what's your recommended antidote for the pace of modern data-driven working life? I know you've done a bit of sailing. What else? What's life like outside work?
Yeah, well, I think as I comb my greying hairs in the morning, sailing is definitely an antidote. Look, fresh air, good walks, clearing the head, spending as much time offline with other humans and family members as online is vitally important. Keeping connected with current and next generation, but keeping grounded is something that's a bit of a life mission.
Yeah. Back to technology and AI. You've been talking a lot about the opportunities that AI brings, and it's something that a lot of my guests on the podcast have talked about recently. Give us a real-world example that really, for you, demonstrates how AI will support the smarter, more efficient, more sustainable infrastructure solutions that we demand.
A couple of really nice projects spring to mind, and one is close to home in Holyhead in North Wales. The Haskinning Holyhead Jetty is a long and complex piece of infrastructure jutting out into the Irish Sea from Holyhead. Weather conditions are a challenge, and I can say that, having spent a lot of time up in North Wales. Scanning it with drones perennially, getting that data back and modelling it from the safety of a site office sure beats the heck out of deploying young contractors on site to go and hang under that bridge and hang under that jetty and scan it in really dangerous conditions. The information is perennial, it's better quality, and it's far safer and it's quicker. That is a great human story born in technology.
Any more?
In Italfair, Sicily are building a new transport construction methodology. They're focusing on site safety, using automation to analyse where operatives go through wearables, and also using drones to monitor where plant is, where pits and deep holes are, and also where operatives go. By modelling and minimising the amount of time on site, again, they've increased operative safety. This time in construction, last time on asset management. Two technology stories that have a happy human ending.
Yeah. And I wanted to get you to talk about those positive stories, because we also hear about the fears of AI. Where are you on that? Should we worry?
AI is a tool, and in the hands of a human, it can do good and it can do less good.
Yeah.
I have faith, not blind faith, but I have very considered faith with the right framework, legal regulatory frameworks, with the right business ethics, as well as provenance and code that we've mentioned, that AI is a force for good.
Yeah. We've also been listening and hearing a lot about bookending, or however you call it. It's a machine in the middle, i.e. humans at the start, humans at the end, as we mentioned earlier. That's critical. But we also heard at the conference about the critical role of context, engineering context, project context, environmental context, when it comes to development and use of AI. Tell us about that. How do you see that context role?
I think context can be or is visual. So what is the visual environment and the technical and environmental environment, if you like, that this project is happening in? But also, what's the economic context? What's the societal context? I think about the work up in Holyhead I mentioned earlier. Holyhead has got some challenges economically and societally. You've got other projects that operate in really prosperous areas. That's really as important as the technical work as well. Are we deploying social value? Are we effectively leaving a more positive legacy, not just a really shiny asset?
Yeah.
So I think we have a duty, again, not just to the asset and the project, but to the society it then serves.
So how should the supply chain, because infrastructure's got a very long supply chain, how should it prepare itself for this transformation that's coming?
I think there's an element of incentive and an element of sort of carrot and stick, really. So the incentives can be around, look what benefits and what value a judicious and appropriate and responsible use of technology, particularly progressive technology, can bring you at every stage of the infrastructure life cycle. Look at how much more control and more safety you're bringing to your projects. Equally, look at the skills and look at the career opportunities you're going to bring your colleagues. I think there's a really nice element there. The other element, I think, which is important maybe to get us a little more off the runway a bit quicker, is building it into the contracts, maybe even as an element of compliance. For you to bid for this tender or compete in this project, your software or your methods must adhere to the following standards. And I think there's room for both.
Yeah. Well, certainly when you look back at the developments of various technological advances in infrastructure, I mean, the BIM mandate really drove change in 2016. It drove it into a sector that, frankly, didn't really want to change. To what extent do you think those kind of mandates make it easier, or perhaps it was harder for the sector to embrace data and digital systems?
As a sector, we are definitely now more used to mandates, regulatory frameworks, even if they're principles driven. We definitely now see the benefit of some form of rallying cry or cajoling force. Doesn't necessarily
or inclusion in a procurement strategy.
Absolutely, which is quite a blunt instrument, but goodness me, it works. And like I said, particularly years ago with the BIM mandate and subsequent iterations, it has got us off the ground. I think more so now it's a little more consensual, but if you are looking at a major contract and you really do recognise that you need certain levels of safety or software capability, just build it in.
I was interested also to see that Bentley's launched a new Infrastructure Cloud Connect platform, which brings, well, you can tell me exactly how I've got it right, but it brings, as far as I can see, asset management together with project management. Attempts to boost collaboration, break down silos, make sure that you're thinking about the operational elements of your asset while you're building it. Why do you see that as really, really important, and how is Bentley going to help sort of change that culture?
That really cuts to the heart of our sector. So our sector largely operates on a design, build, and operate segmentation, really. The question is, how many dots or full stops do you want between design, build, and operate? What we've tried to do is remove them and turn them into commas. So it's a sentence and it flows from one to another. There are apps, and I've been a design engineer, as you know, a contractor, and worked on behalf of asset owners. 3 very different languages, very different phases. We're trying to bring integration, interfaces and connectivity, not to blur the waters and not to try and make it grey, but to try and make sure that there is a steady flow. And a great way to do that is a digital twin that starts at the business case, finishes with the asset in live operation. And of course, bringing together Synchro and Connect, which is effectively asset management and a construction. We're bringing the last 2 elements more close together, which I think is really exciting and just what we need.
And it's interesting. Particularly, I spoke to Jamie Hussain on the podcast about his investment in Sizewell C. And the point he was making is that, yes, they're building a large bit of infrastructure, but they're also going to be maintaining it for 60 years. And so therefore, you can't think about just building an asset. You have to think about what you're going to be doing to maintaining it. Is that something which you see the industry increasingly thinking about, particularly as private money comes in to the sector?
What a great way of putting it. Yes, I do. Yes, it's early stage. And yes, private capital, I think, has stimulated that thinking. And a great expression I heard directly from an investor recently was, before you get going, we'd like to see the instruction manual for the actual finished asset. So how are you going to use this thing? How are you going to maintain this thing? Now, of course, it doesn't need to be prescribed at every level of detail, but an indication, not of where my money's going during the construction or design and construction phase, although that's important, but where the money's gone and then how I get a return on that investment. And it's only fair, I think, to an investor and to broader stakeholders to show this is how this thing is going to be run before we break ground.
And if you speak to investors, they do talk to you about data being key to them really understanding what they're getting into. We've heard a lot about the challenge of finding and maintaining good quality data and infrastructure. Potentially that's holding back the sector, holding back investment. What's your greatest personal frustration when it comes to accelerate the potential of the benefits of the use of data?
Well, a couple of things quickly spring to mind. Firstly, structure, governance, and order. Data will only ever get more prolific in volume and its complexity. So let's now build in early on some control mechanisms, frameworks, and protocols for how we want to organize it. So firstly, organize the data well. Secondly, secure it well and keep it secure. I'm afraid the threat landscape is complex out there and ever-changing. So once it's well organized, well structured, and well controlled, let's keep it safe. Let's keep it in a robust and a resilient system and network with the right protocols, which we can share welcomely and openly with our fellow collaborators on the project.
Well, sum it up for me then, Nathan. I mean, AI, digital systems set to transform the sector. What should infrastructure professionals be doing right now to prepare for what's coming down the tracks?
Retain a very open mind and think back to my comment earlier today. We're halfway through our most digital decade yet. I might have said words similar to that 10 years ago. We were halfway through a far less digital decade. Look at how far we've come, let the projects speak for themselves. We've come a long way. So occasionally doing a stand back, recognizing how far we come, and then committing to how far we're going to go over the next 10 years, and using the projects and visualizing what life on these projects will be like in 10 years' time. That's the way to do it. Let the evidence speak for itself.
Right. And I suppose finally, how can businesses like Bentley help clients prepare and then embrace the change that's coming, the inevitable change that's coming?
I think Bentley's come a long way. I joined at its 40th anniversary, and having been a customer of Bentley's in the past, I've seen Bentley turn up with brilliant products. We're now far more into underpinning, of course, our core products are really industry relevant propositions and solutions that are more integrated, as we've been touching on. So let us come with you on that journey as a partner, where we can provide the products, of course, but we're providing a sustainable capability for you to design, engineer, construct, and operate your most precious assets.
You seem to be enjoying yourself here.
It's a lot of fun. Hard work, rewarding, but fun.
Great. Well, Nathan, thanks so much for joining me today and explaining what is a complex, but as you say, really exciting, big opportunity for the infrastructure sector. So thanks for joining me today.
Thanks. Pleasure to see you.
Good stuff. Well, look, that's all we've got time for, sadly, on the podcast. But we have got more in the pipeline and more guests to talk to as we continue to probe the big issues faced across the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find background information, all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share. So do subscribe also to receive the new infrastructure newsletter. But thanks for joining us. Thanks again to Nathan, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.